So how I lost $1.2 billion. So we were sitting in the living room and we're talking about the economy and the world changing in 2009 and the economic collapse and all these kind of things. And he said, "Hey guys, I'm seeing something that I think is worth looking into." He told me and all of us, and not a single person in that room, 31 people, not a single person took action on it. It's called Bitcoin. Today, that Bitcoin, had I bought $1,000, would be worth $1.2 billion. I remember thinking, I don't know anything about it. I was in fear and resignation. You're listening to the Transform Your Life from the Inside Out podcast. This episode is titled, How I Lost $1.2 billion. That's billion with a B, not M. Yeah, how I lost $1.2 billion. I'm going to share later in this episode, once we get into it, how I was exposed to an opportunity and I didn't take action on it. But I don't want to just talk about that opportunity. I want to talk about other opportunities. And I want to talk about in this episode how we look at opportunity, how we experience it, how many opportunities come to us. We actually ignore the opportunity. We don't take action on it, whatever it might be. But basically, we don't take action and we lose the opportunity. So recognize this. Every single day you wake up is an opportunity. But the question is, what are you doing with it? Keep listening. Okay, so how I lost $1.2 billion. I'll share that story with you in just a moment, but I go back to 1996. I was having a lengthy phone conversation with Don Javier, and he asked me if XYZ had happened in my life, basically if I'd met anyone to date. And I was single back then. And I said, no, I'm hoping for the opportunity. And he stopped me in that moment and said, life is not about hoping. Life is about absorbing. So don't hope opportunities come your way. Absorb the opportunities that life brings you. I think back to 7 or 8 years ago, I was being interviewed by a guy named John Lee Dumas. He has a podcast, I think, called Entrepreneurs on Fire or something like that. I don't know where he is today. Somebody recommended that he interview me. He's interviewed a lot of big names, a lot of very successful people, and it's really a rapid fire type of interview. And at the end of the interview, he said, it was just very poignant, very simple question. He said, "What are you excited about today?" Now, I'd listened to a couple of episodes preparing for this episode, and many people would say things, "Oh, I'm preparing for this new product I have, or this new program that I have, or this new office that I'm building," or whatever it might be. So when he asked me, what am I most excited about? I stopped and I thought for a moment, and I said, I'm most excited about the fact that I have opportunity today. And he looked at me kind of dumbfounded. He was stunned by the answer. I could tell by his body language. But for the most part, and I'm still learning my lessons, for the most part, I understand that everything in front of us is an opportunity. But we have to manage our attention around that opportunity. And I'll share in a moment where I didn't properly manage my attention and explore opportunities and what it cost me. You know, often as I look around, we don't appreciate how much opportunity we have. You know, if you're listening, I know that you're probably in a first world country, even though we've tracked our metrics, and I know that people from 37 different countries listen to the podcast. The predominant countries are probably Canada, the UK, English-speaking countries, quite a few in India, and quite a few in Australia and the US. So we often don't appreciate how much opportunity we have in the places that we live. You know, even though I mentioned India, there's huge economic opportunity right there. And that in the next 25 years, they're going to be probably, as I'm reading, and I kind of stay up with this a little bit, like the second largest economy in the world. So there's a lot of opportunity in India, even though all the challenges they have. So myself, I look back and as I recapitulate my life, and I look at all the opportunities that have come my way. And then I look at the opportunities that I have missed. And I ask myself, let me rephrase that. It's not that I missed the opportunities. It's that I chose not to participate in the opportunity. And then I explored, well, okay, why did I choose not to participate in the opportunity? And it really comes down to two reasons for me. And these two reasons apply to most of us. Reason number one is fear. Reason number two is uncertainty. So for many people also, uncertainty is fear. And I'll talk more about that in just a moment. But I think back living in New York City, and we see this all around the world. But I remember, or all around the US, let me better rephrase it, all around the US. But I remember next to my apartment building in New York City, there were like three restaurants in a row, or three establishments. Let me change my language. Three establishments. One was a Chinese restaurant, one was a Vietnamese restaurant, and one was a Vietnamese dry cleaner. Now, the reason I mention that, you ever noticed the amount of immigrants that maybe came to the US in the 70s? And of course, you can go generations back prior to that. But I think about people who came in the 70s. And the reason I mentioned the Vietnamese in the 70s is many people immigrated from Vietnam to the US, and they had no money, but they came for the opportunity. This is why people, for the most part, come to the US for opportunity. I'm betting money, if you're like most of us, your lineage, your family lineage was not born here in the United States. Your grandparents, your great-grandparents, their parents or their great-grandparents, and on, so on and so on, they came to the US for opportunity. And I mentioned New York City because it's a bastion of people coming from all around the world, everywhere from, the Alphabet City in New York City to Soho to Little Italy to Chinatown. All these parts of New York City are people coming for opportunity. But the reason I started this communication loop and opened it and want to talk about it, you ever notice that many times that when people immigrate, like I talked about Vietnam in the 70s, they don't have anything. But yet decades later, they've got maybe 3, 4, 5, 6, a chain of dry cleaners, and they're very wealthy. But many people that are born here with all the opportunity because they're born into the opportunity are still broke. So on one hand, people saw opportunity, but here's the thing. They took action on that opportunity. On the other hand, the people were really aware of the opportunity, but they did not take action on the opportunity. So how I lost $1.2 billion. I've told this story before, and you might have already guessed it if you've listened for any amount of time, but I go back to my living room in 2009. Don Javier was there, and I was hosting a gathering of people that work with Don Javier, meaning in his inner circle. And there were, I believe, about 31 of us that worked with him at that point in his inner circle. Today, there are only, I don't know the exact number, meaning I don't know what's considered to be in the inner circle anymore. But he has 6 people working with him that started with him at the very beginning, and I'm one of those 6 people. So we were sitting in the living room, and we're talking about the economy and the world changing in 2009 and the economic collapse and all these kind of things. And he said, "Hey guys, I'm seeing something that I think is worth looking into." Now, when he air quotes sees things, he's not allowed to capitalize. He's not allowed to help himself with what he sees etherically, or let's say psychically, or remote viewing, or whatever you choose to call it, or whichever way that he is experiencing and seeing it. He's not allowed to personally capitalize on what he sees. But he said, "Hey guys, I'm seeing this thing that I think you guys should look into. It's called Bitcoin." And he goes, "Right now, Bitcoin is at 10 cents per coin." He goes, "I think you guys should buy $1,000 worth and just hang on to it for quite some time, and then we'll see where it goes." Well, had I listened and had I taken action on that Bitcoin when he told me about it, that Bitcoin, and I'm not exaggerating, I'm not making this up. This is real. He told me and all of us, and not a single person in that room, 31 people, not a single person took action on it. Today, that Bitcoin, had I bought $1,000, would be worth $1.2 billion. I think back just a couple of years prior, and I'll talk about why I didn't take action in just a moment. I think back a couple of years prior when I lived in New York City. And one of my clients was a very wealthy Venezuelan oil man. And I was in his office one day, 30 Rockefeller Center, and this other man walked in, and Raphael said, that man just made $100 million off in Qualcomm. And we started talking about investments. And that day he said, Jim, he said, if you've got any extra money, and he asked me, and I said, yeah, I've got extra money. And he said, take, and I believe he said $10,000 and place it into Amazon. As I was leaving Rockefeller Center that day, I remember exiting the building, walking in the streets, and I started thinking, why? Why do I want to own part of an online book selling company? Well, as best I can do the math, and I'm sure my math is a little inaccurate, but had I bought $10,000 of Amazon back in 2000, and it's about the year 2000, I think that'd be worth, I don't know the exact number, but tens of millions of dollars today. I missed out on that opportunity. And the reason why is I'll share in a moment, just like the Bitcoin, because these same reasons apply to you. I want to share one more opportunity that I missed. About a year ago, I called another brother-in-law of mine who used to be a hedge fund manager at Fidelity. He worked there for 25 years, and he had many friends that were also high-ranking people at Fidelity. I mean, he was literally meeting with Ned, the chairman of the board, quite often, and Abigail, who I think now is chairman of the board, president, whatever. Anyway, the point is this. He has a lot of friends that have been in the financial industry for decades. And I said, hey, when I was talking to him about a year ago, I said, hey, where's gold going to go? And he says, I don't know, but let me ask a friend of mine who's been literally studying the charts. He works at Fidelity. And he goes, let me ask my friend where he predicts gold is going to go. And about a year ago, I had a substantial stash of cash put away, money put away. And I wasn't sure where I wanted to invest it. And my brother-in-law came to me and he said, okay, I talked to my friend. He said, now is a good time to buy gold because it's about to run. And he told me some technical things about how it had hit its bottom and different things. But he goes, it's going to run, meaning it's going to take off. Now, at that point, gold was $1,800 per ounce. And in my mind, my ridiculous mind, I'm thinking, well, okay, why don't I wait for a bit? You know, it's kind of been hovering, 16, 17, 1800. If I wait for a bit, it might hover down to 16 again, and then I can buy. Well, about a month later, when he told me it was 1800, I'll just be candid. I had a lot of money, multiple six figures. I was going to invest in gold. I didn't do it because I thought, well, I'll wait and see what happens. Within a month, it took off from 1800 to 2200, 2300. When it hit 22 or 23, he called me and said, it's going to keep running. Buy. And now I'm like, oh crap. Okay. Is it going to go back down again to 18, 19, 2000? And look where it is today. What is it today in August of 2025? I think it's around $3,400 per ounce. So I'll share a little bit more about what my brother-in-law, his friend told him about gold, and I'll share that in a moment. But I lost out on Bitcoin because I remember thinking, I don't know anything about it. So what I was in, look at the emotions, because look and see if these emotions fit you as well. I was in fear and resignation. Now, $1,000 is not a lot of money, even back then. Well, it wasn't to me, but I didn't want to lose $1,000 for something that I knew nothing about. Notice what I didn't do. I trust my brother-in-law, the shaman. I should have said, wait, let me look this up. Let me find out more about this. Let me see what this is. I didn't do any of that. So I lost out because of fear and resignation. The fear was, what if I lose? And the resignation was, well, I don't know anything about it. Now, my other brother-in-law that I told you about, when he told me to go ahead and buy, I remember very clearly thinking, okay, I'll watch it. And here's a big one for a lot of you guys. I'll watch it and I'll do it later. Well, I was into procrastination and uncertainty. Same thing about the Amazon when I was told to buy it. I was in procrastination and uncertainty, meaning I don't know what's going to happen, so I'll just kind of wait and see what happens. So by not acting on these three bits of information, but especially the first bit of information, and notice all three bits of information were the first two, Amazon and Bitcoin. Bitcoin, the biggest return, was the cheapest amount of money. But by not acting on this financial guidance, inference, suggestion, whatever you want to call it, as I said earlier, that Bitcoin would be worth $1.2 billion today. Now, my brother-in-law that used to be the hedge fund manager, I just went up and spent about 10 days with he and his wife. Actually, it was a 10-day trip, sorry. So I don't know, 5, 6, 7 days, whatever it was, in their vacation home in Jackson Hole, Wyoming. And I said to him, I'm like, hey, I'm not going to be an ask hole. Now, when I say ask hole, an ask hole is somebody who asks you a question and then they don't take your advice. So I said, I'm not going to be an ask hole. And I said, if you would please ask your friend again what he sees about the potential with gold. Because also, even though Bitcoin can be a hedge against inflation, it can be a way to store wealth and an asset, Bitcoin is electronic. I mean, somebody could flip a switch and your Bitcoin is gone. And for millennia, people have always used precious metals to store wealth. So I think it's important to diversify. Anyway, I asked him about a month ago what his friends saw with gold. And I'm just sharing this. I'm not giving financial advice, not my job. I take no liability or accept no liability for anything. I'm just telling you what this guy the guy who told me to buy it at 18 is telling me now. He said, for right now in the immediate future, gold is flat. It's not going to really move, but it's bullish for the long term, meaning it's going to be flat right now and you're not going to have a short-term return on your investment. But if you want it for long-term financial security, then it's a good investment. Take it, leave it, do whatever you want, entirely up to you. So as I mentioned earlier, fear and uncertainty. Now, fear is obvious, okay? And something else I want to share is that for most people, one of their a couple of their biggest fears, number one would be, well, the two biggest fears that people have are, am I good enough? And are people going to reject me? But when it comes to the material world, people have tons of fear and it involves money. Specifically, it involves not losing what I have. We will first actually try to protect what we have so we don't lose it, as opposed to reaching for more. I could offer you the opportunity to reach for more, but most people will first look at, okay, what do I have the potential to lose if I reach for more? By the way, that's a broken strategy that's going to keep you exactly where you are. So fear is obvious. I mean, you know when you get into fear, but the other is uncertainty. And uncertainty is not sure of an outcome. So now what I look at is I go to the bigger outcome. And the bigger outcome would be, so I could look at and say, okay, the outcome could be that I'm going to make this up, $1,000. And the outcome could be that I could make money, or the outcome could be that I could lose money. So where I go now is to a bigger outcome, a bigger picture. And that bigger picture is that you're never going to be certain of an outcome. You're never going to be certain about an outcome until after you take action. Most of us, we have it backwards. We don't take action because we're not sure of the outcome. But the truth is, no matter how much you think about this, you'll find this to be true. We don't know what the outcome is going to be until after we take action. So we're putting the cart before the horse. So think about that. How many times have you not taken action because you're not certain of the outcome? Well, recognize what I just said. The only way you're going to be certain of the outcome is to take action first. Another huge obstacle for most of us is when, which is procrastination and waiting. Many of us, and I have been there before, and I'm not at that place in my life now, but many of us are, okay, I'm going to do X, Y, Z, meaning I'm going to explore this opportunity when things are just right, when the kids are back in school, when I retire, when I get a better job, when I move to a different city, when X, Y, Z happens. Well, the truth is that we're just simply procrastinating. This is what I've learned. And I did a podcast episode on this. Tomorrow never comes. because I know that many times we say, okay, I will do it later. I see this all the time. They'll say, I'll do it later. And they're serious. They think they're going to do it later. And the truth is, most often they never do it later. Why? They get busy, life gets in the way, different things change, their interest changes, whatever it might be. Fear sets in even heavier, the economy shifts in a negative way, whatever. And many of us just don't take action, even though we think that we are. I think back to about 4 years ago. A student of mine, you can find her online. I adore her. She's a well-known, successful comedian named Annie Letterman. And I remember Annie was here in Sedona visiting, and I think she's an absolute sweetheart. And Annie was here visiting, and she said to me, because she had followed me since 2020 when I had the heart failure and I had the stroke. And when she enrolled in TCP, because we only open the doors twice a year. And when she enrolled in TCP, she goes, when you open the doors, I made sure that, and I heard this story from her, but I also heard her talk about it on Joe Rogan, because she was telling Joe Rogan about it when she was on one of his episodes. But she told me, when we opened the doors, she made sure she registered. Why? Because she thought if she took action, already knowing that I had heart failure, she thought if she waited to take action, and I'm still laughing at this, that I might kick the bucket before she ever got to enroll in TCP. So she wanted to go through TCP, the Transformational Coaching Program. So she took the action, even though she wasn't ready, she took the action when it was right in front of her. I'm going to share with you guys, that is a powerful place to work from. Kudos, kudos, kudos to Annie. We have to take action even when we think we're not ready, but most people are getting ready to get ready, to get ready, to overthink, to get ready, to start over again, to tear it down, to get ready, to tear it down again, to rebuild it, to perfect it, to get ready. I know some of you listening can relate to that. So what we have to do is we have to decide. We have to decide, and even deciding or not deciding is a decision. So then the next question I have for you is, what do you want your tomorrow to look like? What do you want your next week, your next month, your next year to look like? You know, something I recognized a while back, and I'm still learning my lessons, as I said earlier, like all of us, but it's a place that I attempt to be mindful about. For many of you guys, and this used to apply more to me, it really doesn't, because I can say with all honesty, there are not a lot of things that create any significant fear in me. And the reason why, as I've said before, your greatest advisor is your death. And when you accept your mortality and recognize that nothing is permanent, that gives you power. But what I want to share with you, for all of you guys, is that your fear, your uncertainty, your intrepidation, your procrastination, every bit of that is obsolete. And you might be thinking, what the hell are you talking about, Jim? It's not obsolete. It's in my life right now. No, I'll say it again. When you're in fear and uncertainty and intrepidation and procrastination, you're into obsolete emotions that you're currently choosing to put your attention on now. And what I mean by that is that all these emotions, the fear, the uncertainty, the intrepidation, or the procrastination, you didn't create that today. That was created from your past. Your past is obsolete. And what a lot of us don't recognize is that we're trying to manifest and we're trying to create from our past. Many people, been there, done that. We're living right now, but what we're doing is we're thinking about our future, but we're creating our future from our past. So whatever fears we created in the past, we project into the future. We project into the now. Whatever intrepidation or uncertainties we learned in the past, 5 years, 10 years, 15, 20 years ago, we're living in the present because we're still carrying it with us. And then we project our future and project this into the future, and we're carrying our past from 20 or 30 years ago into our future 10, 15, 20 years ago. We're not living in the now. And the now simply means, what choices without fear are you going to make today? What opportunities are you going to seize, which is where I started this episode. What opportunities are you going to seize today? Because I've said it before, and we don't get it till we get it. There is no time but now. There's not an opportunity later because, later is not here yet. There's no opportunities in the past other than to learn from the past, but many of us don't do that. There's no opportunities in the past. There are no opportunities in the later and the future because it's not here yet. The only opportunity you have right now is the now and the choices that you make right now. And if you have any fear coming in, that's literally the past sabotaging your now. I mean, how much sense does that make, right? So even, beyond your fear, your limitations are obsolete. Think about that, your limitations, because all your limitations you learned in your past. You've heard me say stuff like this before. Do you think your soul preoccupies itself with the same crap that your human ego does, your 3D ego does? No, it doesn't. So where do I work from now? So there's a couple of what I would call foundational things that I hold in my thought processes. And I recognize if I don't take action on something, now it's by conscious choice. And if I make a conscious choice, or when I make a conscious choice, whatever outcomes that leads to, even if I lose $1.2 billion, I'm okay with that. Why? Because I made the choice that led to that. So where do I work from now? Number one, one of my top 3 favorite quotes, I've said it probably a dozen times on the podcast. There's a reason that I keep saying it. When you dig into it and you dig deeply, you will find some profound wisdom here. It's from Eliphas Levi. Fear is the idleness of will. So anytime you're in fear, I've said it so many times, I don't even feel like explaining it anymore. But when you're in fear, basically what you're saying without saying it verbally is, I don't believe in myself. I don't trust myself. I don't think I have ability. I don't think I have power. I'm weak. And I, for me, refuse to go to that place. Where I also work from is, if uncertainty comes to me, I know that uncertainty will linger and nothing will change until after I take action. So what many of us do is uncertainty comes and we wallow in the uncertainty. Been there, done that. And where I work from now is I can't wallow in this uncertainty. I can either consciously choose to take action or not take action. And either one is a choice, but that's better than being in uncertainty, because uncertainty is also a choice and it leads nowhere. And then about waiting. I read this phrase a while back, and I've read it many years ago, but Gandhi said something along the lines of, and I do use this in my own life, because there are many things, candidly, I'm no different than you. I don't want to do that today. I'll get to it later. I don't feel like doing that, etc. When it comes to my work and my service, the podcast and the transformational coaching program, transformational sales program, the Be to Have Insiders, and everything that I do, when it comes to the work that I do, I consider that my service. And candidly, there are some days that I'm tired. Solar storms will make me tired. They'll hit me pretty hard. And I don't feel like recording a podcast episode or creating one or even thinking of one, but I do it. Why? I do it anyway because that action will determine my tomorrow. So what I was going to say is Gandhi said, your actions today will determine your tomorrow. Think about that. Your actions today will determine your tomorrow. But what I used to do, and I'm sure many of you do, is I want X, Y, Z tomorrow, but I'm not going to take any action on it today. That's why I said a while back on a couple of episodes, I learned from an alcoholic, a student of mine, when he said, tomorrow never comes. Let that sink in. And what he meant by that is an alcoholic will say, I'm quitting tomorrow, I'm quitting tomorrow, I'm quitting tomorrow, but they never quit because tomorrow never comes. So if you're waiting for a better opportunity, a better time, a better condition, better world circumstances, guess what? That tomorrow is never going to come because your only opportunity is not tomorrow, not yesterday. Your only opportunity is today. And then many people even today will say, well, Jim, look at the economy in 2025. It's a shit show. And it is, candidly, in many ways. When you really look at the numbers, a lot of people are hurting in the economy. Stock market's inflated. It's highly inflated. I mean, NVIDIA is now worth $4.5 trillion or whatever. And I was talking about this with my brother-in-law that used to manage billions of dollars as a hedge fund manager. And he's like, the top 7 stocks are all overvalued and they've got to correct at some point. But when you look out into the real world, just real people like all of us, it can be challenging in a lot of different ways. And I see a lot of people going through a lot of challenges. And what I look at is many people get stuck in the interpretations about where the world is, and they miss opportunities that are right in front of them to make their life better. And what I look at is there's always opportunity. In a bad economy, people are going to get hurt and people are going to make money. In a good economy, people are going to get hurt and people are going to make money. When I say hurt, I mean financially. So I mentioned before, earlier in this episode, about precious metals. Well, guess what? Several years ago, precious metals were not moving and they were not all that hot. Now these companies that sell precious metals are making, no pun intended, a gold mine on the commissions they're making for the amount of people buying gold and silver and palladium and platinum. So when one side loses, the yin and the yang, the Tao, when one side loses, the other side gains. And when one side gains, the other side loses. There's always opportunity. But what a lot of people won't do is they won't adjust to the opportunity. Most people want to stay the same. And I'm telling you this, it's been many decades, but I've been there, is we won't adjust to the changing conditions in the world. And if you think that's not a dangerous strategy, ask Blockbuster. It wouldn't change. Netflix did. Look where Netflix is today. Look where Blockbuster is. As the world changes, we have to change. And what happens is many of us won't adjust. And a way that I see it right now, one of your biggest opportunities is AI. I mean, AI is going to dwarf everything in the next couple of decades. That's where the money is right now in AI. But many people, I've heard people say, I hate AI, meaning they're not going to stretch, they're not going to change. And what's going to happen, just like what happened to Blockbuster, the world is going to run over those people. So we have these huge opportunities and recognize that these opportunities are not going to be around forever. So opportunities have an expiration date. Bitcoin, it doesn't have an expiration date despite what I just said, but we don't know what's going to happen with it. So now we're into uncertainty. Some people say Bitcoin's going to go to $1 million per coin. Will it? Who knows? Will it not? Who knows? But what I'm sharing with you, the opportunity to buy it at 10 cents a coin expired when I didn't take action. The opportunity to buy gold at 1,800 expired when I did not take action. So if you're wanting to buy stocks or wanting to invest or wanting to do something, recognize this. Even relationships, think about this for a moment. Even relationships, the opportunity can expire when we don't take action. I remember back to a buddy of mine, and he told me there was this girl, this was a lot of years ago, there was this girl that he had a crush on. And they knew each other. They were physically compatible in terms of their physical appearance, their look, their demeanor, their values. They probably would have been a very successful couple. Who knows? But what he said to me was, I'm afraid to ask her out. I'm afraid to approach her. So therefore, he never did. And we were all college friends, and we still are today, 35 years later. And I remember saying to someone a female, that, hey, XYZ person had a crush on you. And there's a couple of instances where this happened in my life. So, but an instance I'm talking about here, in case people are listening from, when I went to college. So what she said is when I said, hey, many years ago, XYZ person had a crush on you, but he was afraid to ask you out. She said, wow, I never knew that. I never knew that he liked me. I liked him also, but I didn't know if he liked me. And she's happy. She's married today. And she says, wow, this is mind-blowing to me. She says, wow, I wonder where my life would be today had we both taken the opportunity to connect with each other back when we got out of college. That's an interesting question. Now, everything happens like it needs to happen. So what needed to happen is what needed to happen. Yet the window of opportunity closes. whether it's putting on an offer on a house, whether it's a job, whether it's money, whether it's even your health. You can take it for granted and take it for granted and take it for granted, and you got good health. At some point, that window of opportunity is going to close for you. So realize this, when we do take action, we already know what happens when we don't take action. When we do take action, some things will work out. Conversely, some things will not work out. And we have to be okay with that because that is life. So where I work from today is a phrase I keep in the back of my mind. My sister said this, is we all need to get an S.T.D. Surrender, trust, do not doubt. So that's where I live from today. And I'm going to do what I'm going to do through conscious choice and conscious awareness. And if I make money, great. If I lose money, great. It's all part of the plan. I'm not operating from certainty, and I'm just going to do what I'm going to do. But my whole focus is on moving forward. So where I work from today is, number one, is I'm going to take action on things. Because if I take action, I know that I'm going to learn something. I know that I'm going to grow and evolve. I'm going to actually learn what to do more of it, or I'm going to learn what not to do, and then I'll learn from that, and then I'll move the opposite direction. So either way, when I take action, and if I make money or I lose money, either way, I'm still growing and evolving because I am learning about what works and what doesn't work. Secondly, I work from the surrender. Whatever happens is going to happen. And then number three, which I've alluded to, is I'm great with taking action and it working out. I mean, who doesn't like that? And I'm great with it not working out because I'm learning, and I'm learning what not to do, which means I can grow. I don't know if this is true or not, but I read a story many years ago where Thomas Jefferson, his workshop caught on fire. Now, again, this could be some motivational speaker making this up, but I heard this many years ago where his workshop caught on fire, and he told his son, they were standing outside, he told his son, quick, go get your mom. Now, I don't know where she was, okay? But he said, go get your mom. And what he said was, okay, what Edison said is we burned down all of our mistakes. We burned down what didn't work, and now we can actually start again. And he was saying something like, now we know what doesn't work, we can work on what does work. So your transformational takeaway, and by the way, I'm going to share more of this, another personal story that I've never shared anywhere on the podcast, in the secret podcast. You can join that and hear that by going to jimfortin.com/insiders, jimfortin.com/insiders. Your transformational takeaway is this: action is your salvation. Write that down if you're not driving. Action is my salvation. So these days for me, I view everything as an opportunity, and it's a learning opportunity. And when you're learning, you're growing. And if something, which rarely happens, if it causes fear to my ego, most people run. I embrace that. Why? Because it's an opportunity for me to grow beyond the fear. It's an opportunity for me to grow out of that comfort zone that may be keeping me trapped or blinded. Everything is an opportunity. Take action now. Thanks for listening, and I'll catch you over on another episode.